everyone. Welcome to the JPaul Hernandez podcast, and this is JPaul. So, thank you, Podcast Network Asia and Podmetrics, for making this happen. And I am so excited, everybody, for today's conversation. My guest today is one of, I guess, my greatest friends, and I am the type of person that likes to work. I like being busy, but this guy is somebody that I can spend the whole day with. I'm that's how good of a person he is. Not just because he's fun, but because he's not nonsense. I hate nonsense moments or just people, but this guy, even fun things have intentionality, and there's always wisdom and truth. And I've met him a few years ago, in and became a friend. And through the years, we just became really good friends. And I remember he was an executive then, about 10 years ago, or 8 to 10 years ago. He was an executive for agency. And I've seen him grow his business portfolio, pursue his dreams. And one of the things that I'm most proud of him is to see him reinvent himself today. And now he's in America. He is in Boston, conquering the Western Hemisphere. And with that, let me introduce to you my dear, 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 dear friend, Francis Miranda. Hi, Francis.
Hello, everyone. Hello, JPaul. So, depending on where you are in the world, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening.
So, Francis has a book, Unapologetic, and he has a group called Unapologetic Tribe, and it's really what some of the things we're gonna talk to today. And just please open your heart and mind and heart for this conversation, because this is one of the wisest persons I have met in life. Francis, let's just dive into it. Francis, so you just share your very colorful experience in corporate and business, and tell something
so,
about yourself too. Yeah.
I've been around. So, I graduated from the University of Asia in the Pacific. I graduated with a master's degree in integrated marketing communications. So, that essentially meant that I was going to pursue a career in advertising, right? And true enough, that's exactly what happened. My first job out of college was I went to Spain. So I worked for a couple of months in Pamplona, and then I eventually wound up in Barcelona, Spain. So I was working for an ad agency there. I was there for 2 years. And then I went home. I went and I worked for one of the biggest and, in my opinion, the best ad agency in the Philippines, which was Hernandez Basic, founded by the late great Mon and Abby Jimenez. So these were two amazing advertising powerhouses. I couldn't have asked for better role models or better mentors in the advertising field than these two. And then, as fortune would have it, I got assigned to Kuala Lumpur to run one small agency there called Publicis Dialogue. So I went to Kuala Lumpur. I was there for 2 years, and then I was invited to come back home to become an ECD in a local event agency called Tagline, which we were able to grow into one of the biggest event agencies. And then I eventually became chief operating officer. And I wound up getting a green card, so I wound up moving here to the United States. But even up to now, I'm still involved in advertising because I'm the executive creative director and a partner in an ad agency there in the Philippines called Niche Play. So even up to now, it's kind of funny because my schedule is sometimes so whacked up because I have to service clients here on morning time here, but there's that occasional presentation, that occasional pitch that would happen, let's say at 3 p.m. in Manila, which would be 3 a.m. for me. So I gotta dress up at 3 a.m., face the camera, and present. So it's kind of funny because that experience actually prepared me for life in this pandemic. When this pandemic happened, everything transitioned to Zoom meetings. And for me, that was already something that I was used to because I was doing a lot of that. In fact, one of the things that I'm very proud of saying is that a couple of months ago, you know, I was home in the Philippines last February. I went home to the Philippines last February. It was a very brief visit. It was only
5 days or 4 days? I couldn't even see
six
you.
days. 6 days. And in that visit, the reason why I flew home was because number one, the ad agency flew me home because of two things. Number one, we had a major client pitch that we needed to prepare for, and they wanted me to present it live. So they flew me in live, and by the way, we won it. Number two, we had our planning session, and in this planning session, I remember clearly we already announced to the entire agency that we were no longer going to operate out of an office, because months ago we started discussing with our partners that, you know what, the Philippine traffic is so horrendous, so shouldn't we, I mean, most of our work we're able to do it remotely. I do my work remotely. I mean, how remote is like 12 hours away, you know? And 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 we agreed, okay, there's so much traffic in the Philippines. So much of our people's energy is wasted because it takes them 2 to 3 hours just to go to work and 2 to 3 hours to go home. Why don't we just do everything online? So we announced it. And that turned out to be very, and that was how we were already operating. We minimized people going to the office. And it turned out to be prophetic of what was going to happen a week later, which was this pandemic
I
struck.
love it.
I was lucky because I flew back in the United States just as the pandemic was gaining ground, and if I had stayed for another week, I would have been stranded. so,
Yeah.
and I guess that trajectory of career has been always been, I think, consistent with who I am. I tend to like to shake things up, and one of the things that I shook up in that particular agency was this idea that we don't need to physically go to the office, because every single agency before had this mindset that you had to go to the office. And honestly, advertising life was really such a work until you die culture. I mean, really, it was work until you die culture. I guess I was fortunate enough that I started my career in an ad agency that had good life balance, because the owners were very clear about that. Mon and Abby Jimenez were very clear about work-life balance. And I was fortunate that that's how I started. So therefore, every agency that I worked with, I was very clear about making those boundaries. But eventually, I decided that when I decided a couple of years ago, when I hit the big 4-0, that I wanted to also reinvent myself. So I decided to retire from full-time advertising work. So I decided, you know what, I'm going to retire from full-time advertising agency work and focus on building a career as a speaker. And trust me, my friend, and I'm sure you can relate to this. So for people who've jumped out of the corporate life into your own and therefore your own business, it's terrifying as shit. It's like, really, oh my gosh, what's going to happen to me, right? In fact, I wanted to share with you this moment. So after I retired from advertising, when I tendered my resignation, I immediately went abroad. So I spent 4 months soul searching. It was like the longest vacation I ever took. I spent 4 months soul searching. I was flying here and there. I went to Peru. I went to Colombia. I went to New Zealand. I went to Australia. I went here to the United States. I was in New York. And of course, I was trying to figure out what I wanted. And I said, okay, let's build this career of being a speaker. And the funny thing was, of course, eventually that vacation had to end. I had to fly back to Manila because otherwise I was going to starve, So I flew back to Manila. And then I remember on the plane, for some reason, when the plane crossed the dateline, the international dateline, I just had this weird anxiety panic attack in the middle of the plane. I was like thinking to myself, oh my gosh, I'm flying back to Manila unemployed. What the hell is going to happen to me? I was so terrified. Like, really, I was so terrified. I was so worried because for the last, 17 years of my life, I was so used to the idea of having a salary, right? Then all of a sudden I had zilch, zero, nada. But you know what was funny? I said, I'm clear with what I want. I'm going to pursue it unapologetically, right?
Woohoo!
And I landed in Manila. I remember it was around 10 a.m. I think when I landed. And obviously, I've been traveling for 4 months. a haircut here in the United States is super expensive. So my hair was like crazy long. So the first thing I decided to do was to go to a barber shop. So by 12 noon, I was sitting in my barber's chair. I was just wandering there. And then suddenly, a friend of mine who I've not seen, nor talked to, nor heard from in the last, what, maybe 15 years, messages me out of random. And she said, "Hey, Francis, I have a question. Are you, do you know people in advertising or in the creative field?" I said, "Well, I'm in the creative field." And she said, "Well, I'm looking for a speaker because we have this big conference there in what's this place? It's near it's where these giant bazaars in the Philippines were held. I can't believe I don't remember that.
World Trade.
World Trade. There you go. So we have this conference for creative individuals, and I was kind of hoping if you could lead me to a speaker." And I said, well, you're actually speaking to your speaker. And voila, within 2 hours after landing, I booked my first speaking gig. And I was like,
Wow,
oh,
so
very
powerful.
good. And I guess the message I wanted to share with people is that if when you decide to pursue something, trust me, you're going to panic like crazy. And that's the panic and the fear is a normal part of it. And trust me, that fear is like being punched in the gut. You want to puke. You're coughing, you're super nervous, but I'd like to think that that fear is like a litmus test. It's there to really see whether you're determined to continue that mission or not. So that's essentially what happened. And now I'm here in the United States. I'm doing my speaking gigs here. I was fortunate. I guess I was also blessed because in the sense that I moved here December 2018. Since then, I've been able to give talks in 77 cities and 25 states. I wish that would have been more this year, but hello, Miss Rona. So everything got transferred into online, and I haven't traveled since. So that's the part of my life that I do miss. So that's essentially my life.
I love it. And guys, for those who are watching and listening, that's a very colorful life. It's been a pleasure to be part of Francis' life. And Francis, I really want to, I guess, a portion to talk about this because I'm really proud of you. Nothing against immigrants who had to really scrub with their elbows in their jobs in the States because it's really, everyone thinks that ito talaga. I know you had to sacrifice a bit, especially at the start, but now you are on track with your momentum at such a short span of time. What did you do? How?
So,
Oh, by the way, I'm so proud of you.
well, thank you,
Congratulations.
thank
I'm
you,
so
thank
proud
you.
of what you're accomplishing. So sorry to stop you. Please share.
So the one thing that I can really say about this experience is that our immigrants are tough as nails because honestly, this moving to a new country. It isn't an easy thing, right? And you're right about that. That it at the end of the day, you will question everything about you. When I moved here, oh my god, I felt like I was stripped of every single comfort zone that I had. I mean, to give you an idea, right? So I moved here December 2018, and of course, nobody knows you here. How can you possibly book a career here? You don't have a professional. You don't have a working experience here, so you're not even sure if you're gonna get hired, right? And I remember in January, a friend of mine reached out to me asking me if I wanted to do a team building session with some of his coworkers here in the US. And I was so happy. To be honest, I was so proud of myself because I said, "Oh my gosh, I've just been here for a month. Yeah, I was able to book my first gig." And then then they asked me how much was my rate, right? And I said, "Well, because I knew this organization didn't have a lot of money to give. I just quoted them a stupid random number, $200. That's it, right?" And you know what they said? They said, "Oh, you know what? We don't have a budget for you, so we'll cancel it." Oh my gosh! So can you imagine that? How that hit me? I felt like, oh my gosh, I'm not even worth $200. Imagine that was such a a struggle. And when I was telling the story, it made it appear like everything happened so quick and so fast. It didn't happen that way. I mean, I tried sending out resumes. I tried to apply
Oh.
for jobs here and there, and no one was biting. Right? I guess excuse me. I guess my big break happened only in May. So imagine that how many months passed, right? The big break only happened in May when suddenly I was referred to a company that was like a speakers bureau and a training bureau. And this speakers bureau essentially they send speakers and trainers all over the United States to speak, right? And I had to audition for that. I had to audition for that thing. So I had to send in a video of me speaking. It was so funny because my problem was every single recorded video I had where I was speaking to a giant crowd, since a lot of it happened in the Philippines, it was Taglish. So I would intersperse English with Tagalog, and I didn't have a video. And I scoured through my entire catalog of videos. I didn't have a video where I spoke English completely, like from start to finish, right? So I had to even fake a talk, which means I had to rent my brother-in-law's conference room and deliver a talk to an empty room just so that I could deliver a straight
I
English
love
talk.
the hustle. I love the hustle.
And that's it. That's what you do. What you need to do, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And as luck would have it, I got in. I was flown to their headquarters. We had like a 4-day boot camp to train us, to acquaint us of all the policies, and it was hit the ground running. I mean, like the next week, I was on the plane. I was traveling here and there. I'm moving around, and I guess what really kept me going, and which is I think a message that I wanted to share with other people, is that you have to be very clear that your worth is never defined by who is interested in hiring you.
I love
That
it.
should never go away because it's so easy to peg our worth on that. And if we allow that to define who we are, we wind up spiraling down a negative rabbit hole.
Yeah.
I'll be the first to admit, I'm not going to lie. I'll be the first to admit that there were moments when I went into a dark place because in the Philippines, to book a gig was the easiest thing. People would not, you wouldn't even need to promote yourself. People would just reach out to you, would knock at your door, would email you, and suddenly your entire month, you wake up one day, your entire month is filled. And I remember in the
I
Philippines,
remember one day I had to sub for you because you
yeah,
were just so you had so many bookings. And JPaul, you wanna, okay, sure. And
yeah.
yeah, you were so busy here. Wow, wow.
And one of the things that I'm and this might seem like a little bit, but it is what it is, right? I took, just like you, I took up improv comedy. We say one of our most powerful weapons is our personal truth, right? And it is what it is. So one of the things that I've been very proud of is that in the Philippines, I had never had to write a resume because I never had to apply for a job. Every single job I got into, I was pirated or poached. So I never, even from the very first job, I never had to apply for that. It was always you were invited to work for them.
Ganda.
Here in the United States, I didn't even know how to write a resume anymore. And I had to apply. And I had to go through that experience, right? But then in the midst of that, you realize that everything that you've had until that particular point in your life has already prepared you for whatever you're undergoing. Sometimes we have this mindset where we're undergoing a major problem at the moment, or we're undergoing a challenge in our lives at the moment. But we fail to look back into our past body of experience and access it. We think we're helpless, but when you look back at the body of experience that you had, every single thing you've undergone, every f up, every every victory, every stumble, fall flat in your face moment, every failure, every joy, every triumph, every lesson, all of that exists within you. And when you access that, you'll realize, oh my gosh, I have everything I need to be able to formulate a plan and move forward, to be able to figure things out.
Yeah.
And that's it. Every single challenge I've had in the past, every single drama, every single moment that drove me to do walling and fall down in the ground crying, every single one of those prepared me for the tough life here, the hustle life here. And when you say hustle, I discovered here in the United States, the hustle is like 10 times more intense. People are hyper competitive here, and there you just gotta go with that. But then when you're clear about that, you'll realize that, oh my gosh, you can survive here. And that's exactly what happened. When I started to do my gigs, right? So I would be deployed to companies, to conferences, and I'd speak. And it's a varied group. Sometimes you're speaking to a group of like 70 people. Sometimes you're speaking to two. So I've had talks where there are only two people. So and whenever I give my talks, the one thing that I do, which I thought everyone does, is I really go out of my way to find out what is the business of each and every participant there. Like I write down, I make notes. When they come in, I try to identify what their businesses are, what industry they're involved in. And I tailor fit whatever I'm speaking about to give examples that are applicable to them and them alone, right?
That takes a lot of brain power.
Yeah, and it was something that I thought was, I didn't think there was anything special about it. I just thought, it's just giving you the extra touch, right? I didn't know after my first month that apparently every single talk that we have, is apparently being graded. So every participant is given a survey, is emailed a survey, and they fill that out, right? They answer that survey. And they send out the report, right? And in that report, they map out your average score. And oh my gosh, I was so shocked to discover that on my first month there, my average score was 9.8 out of 10. And I was in the top 10 of all the speakers in the United States.
I love it. Asians conquering America.
So I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know that. And again, it goes back to, and then I was reading some of the comments people were saying, and they were saying that, the one comment that struck out for me was that Francis Miranda was the only speaker who we felt authentically cared for us and our business.
Oh my gosh.
That phrase. And it goes back again to our unique Filipino-ness, our ability to care profoundly, which we take for granted, but then it actually comes out and people appreciate it. The word I use for that is our sense of aruga. And aruga is a word I talk a lot about because there's no equivalent of that word here in the United States. But when you talk about aruga, it's a deep, profound compassion for people. Yeah. And you can't fake that. You really can't fake that. It's
like love in action.
It's like love in action. And you don't want to use the word love because it's so touchy-feely here. Yeah. But the best way to discuss it is really aruga, right? The Filipino way to care, compassion, for the Filipino way to care with such a deep compassion. And it makes total sense. I mean, why are our nurses and doctors among the best here? Because our nurses and doctors here really show their patients how much they care. And if you are a patient who's in a vulnerable state, you're sick, you're in a bed in pain, you'd want your nurse or your doctor to care for you, to feel like they're caring for you and they're not just, billing you every second you're there in the hospital, right? So
I love it. Yeah. I mean, I love it, Francis, kasi I'm so beautiful just because I know you. I remember a few years ago, you would be stressed out. You would be like, I remember you would just sleep behind your driver. So you have a driver. So for those who don't know, Francis used to have a driver, and he would just like shut down at the back seat because of the stress. But as I saw you embrace your personal truths and not be unapologetic in a sense that just blah,
Mm.
but unapologetic in the real truth of your
Yeah.
humanity and who you are, there's just flow. I guess that's the best word. Um, can you share more about that, about you and achieving that? It's not really achieving, it's being you. It's being
And
the
and
real Francis Miranda.
and you know, I think one of the sources of success of people, which we normally take for granted, is the embrace of the authentic you.
Mm,
And that's where unapologetic came from. You know, let's face it. We live in a society where you're constantly being forced to fit. You're a peg that's being forced to fit into a hole, right? And regardless of the size, people are gonna try to shove you into that hole, and they're gonna try to make you fit there, right? And due to societal pressure, due to cultural pressure, we wind up self-censoring our authentic self. We put on this face, this facade, this mask. We put on this mask. We try to disguise who we are because we simply want to blend in. And you know, I discovered it's such a and it's not uniquely Filipino. It's such an Asian thing as well,
yeah.
where we've been always primed and trained to not stick out. There's the metaphor that I use is we've always been trained that if you stick out, you're like a nail that's stuck out. And if the nail is stuck out, what happens? A hammer comes along and hammers it in, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we're trained to blend in, to essentially live mediocre lives, which means we have to be a copy paste of everyone. We have to mold ourselves to the image of everyone around us. And I've seen so many dreams die because of that. So many people living frustrated lives. Imagine the anguish of that, the idea of a frustrated life. You're living, but you're frustrated because deep inside there's something else that you want, but you're unable to pursue it simply because you're afraid you're going to be judged by other people, simply because you're afraid of the opinions of other people. And that for me is such a horrible cage to be in. How many of us are stuck in that particular cage, right? Where we can't do the thing that we want because we're simply afraid that we might be judged. And underline the word we might be judged. We're not even sure we're going to be judged, but just that fear of the possibility of being judged, that holds us back. And that's where unapologetic came from. Because I remember there were moments when I was trying to figure out, okay, so why am I living? Why am I a little bit anxious? Why am I having bouts of anxiety? And I realized that I've been having bouts of anxiety because I've not been talking about my personal truth. There were certain ambitions that I had in life that I was afraid to even articulate, because if I articulated those ambitions, I was afraid people were going to say, "Oh, he's proud, he's mayabang, he's so ambitious. Oh my gosh." But then you realize it, every single person who made it big, they had one particular thing in common. They had a dream and they were unafraid to pursue it. And each and every one of these people who made it big, they had naysayers, they had people who tried to put them down. They did not listen to all those voices, rather, they listened to their internal voice. The problem is that when we are hearing so many voices around us, it becomes a loud noise. It becomes so loud that we're unable to hear our own voice. And we just wind up living precisely this frustrated life, this life where you're just moving around, you're existing, but you're not living. And I don't want that, because I've seen so many people who on their deathbed, that's their life. One of the tests I always give people that I coach, so I do a lot of coaching, right? One of the tests I give people when I coach them is, I call it the fast forward to your deathbed test. And that test is very simple. Fast forward your life and imagine yourself, you're lying at your deathbed, you have maybe a few moments of life yet left, right? When you look back on your life, is it a life that you think you're happy with? And suddenly that's the liberating thought, because when they see their lives at that moment, they realize that, oh my gosh, this is not the life that I want. I don't, if I can't imagine living this life all the way until my deathbed. And I would tell them, the good news, you're not yet on your deathbed. That future can still be altered. You can alter that by making a decision right now. And what's holding you back? And precisely what keeps holding people back was that idea that, oh, but people are going to judge me. And then at the end of the day, at your deathbed, you're not going to care about those other people. You're not going to care about their opinions. You're going to care about the regret that you had because you allowed other people to dictate ultimately what is it that you wanted to achieve. And that's what unapologetic is. I'm never going to make apologies for my dreams. I'm never going to make apologies for the things that I want to achieve. Being unapologetic doesn't mean, being an asshole and never saying sorry if you've done wrong. That's not the definition of that. But it simply means that you make no apologies for your dreams, your ambitions, how you want to help people. That's essentially it. And that's the brand that I chose to embrace. That's because that's connected to my personal truth as well.
I love everything, Francis. Let's talk about Asians, especially Filipinos, wherever, not here in the Philippines, wherever we are. And I really believe, because business is really about caring for your customers. It's taking care of them.
Yes.
As you said earlier, we're the best carers. But 99% of Filipinos are just afraid to start the business that's in their heart. How can they be unapologetic in pursuing that dream business, that dream hustle, that dream life?
Again, it goes back to the judgment of other people. Why when you dissect it, why are people really afraid to set up their own business or to achieve their own personal business dream? The reality is, it's not that they're afraid of failure per se. It's that they're afraid that if they fail, they'll be judged. It goes back into that. People don't make that leap simply because they're afraid that if they fail, they will eventually be judged. So that's the first type of fear that prevents people from going forward. The second fear comes from a state of pride. You're afraid to leap into business because you're afraid to start small.
Yeah.
You're afraid to strip yourself of all of the accolades, of all of the professional prestige you've accumulated in the last years, and suddenly you're going to lose everything. You're going to lose your cushy office. You're going to lose your secretary. You're going to lose your driver. You're going to lose that big salary, and you're going to have to hustle. You're going to have to do everything yourself. You're going to have to learn to write your own letters. You're going to have to learn to buy your own supplies. And it goes back into that. When people start to see you, you're driving the car on your own. Or what happened to your driver? Oh, you're buying your own supplies. Oh, you're going to the store having t-shirts printed out. Don't you have somebody to do that for you? That is what also holds people back. Yeah. So the idea is very simple. If you want to go into business, don't fixate over the potential judgments that other people may have. Rather, fixate on what is your personal vision of victory for yourself.
I love it.
And realize that you don't have to be successful on day one. You have to be kind to yourself to accept that in business, you will not be successful from day one. So, accept that fact that you will have failures and difficulties along the way. Make that an assumption so that if ever your business journey is problem-free, then that becomes a pleasant bonus. Yeah. But if your business you discover problems in your business, you're going to be able to tell yourself, you know what, I've got this covered because I've anticipated this. And that's it. That's what you need. You have to really go back and listen to your inner voice. What is the voice in your heart telling you? Because I tell you, if you ignore that voice, you ignore that voice to your peril. Because that voice will continue to nag you. That voice is going to continue to speak and to shout. And there will come a time when your ignorance of that voice is maddening. nakakabaliw siya. It will constantly nag you. It will constantly eat away at you. It will eat a hole in your heart.
Yeah.
So if you've always wanted to put up the business, then put it up. If you fail, what's the worst that can happen? Go back to work. Go back and look for a job, diba? But one of the worst regrets you can ever have in life is the what if regret. The what if I had done this? And the only way to prevent that regret from happening is to actually do it. And if you did it and you failed and you wound up going back to, let's say, whatever job you've had in the past,
Yeah.
at the very least, you can tell yourself, I tried my best, it didn't work out, so that's okay. No regrets.
So beautiful. And as you were sharing, made me reflect that we are so in love with this question. Hey, what do you do?
Mm. Yes.
Sometimes we define ourselves, I think, to our job title. And that's why we don't want to get there. And that's why you're so amazing, because you've tried many things and succeeded because you fought for it.
Mm.
Francis, I think we're about to wrap up. I want to ask you something because, as you said, uh, people don't want the hustle. Parang they want the success, but they don't want the process of getting there.
Yes.
What is the price of pursuing your dreams? What is the price you have to pay for a lifestyle that you really want, and not
Mm.
just working your and sorry for my English, my sorry, not just to work your ass off for somebody else.
Well, the price you have to pay is you will have to forego your life of consistent comfort because pursuing it will definitely, any entrepreneur will tell you that when you pursue a business life, you're pursuing a life of discomfort. So you gotta deal with the discomfort at the beginning. But that discomfort is designed for a simple purpose. It's designed to push you to create your processes.
Mm.
A lot of people, when they talk about entrepreneurship, we talk about the lofty inspiration of entrepreneurship, right? And not many people talk about the more practical part of that, which is our success will also lie in us identifying processes to precisely make our life comfortable again.
Yes.
Where does discomfort come from? Discomfort comes from because you're going into uncharted territory. There's no process yet for you. You're basically flinging things and seeing what's going to hit, what's going to stick to the wall, right? But then I realized that, and I'm going to be the first one to admit it. I've been a creative my entire life. So the idea of process or organization, those are things I'm not comfortable with because I love the chaos, and that's the reason why I love improv because I love improvising things. I'm not a very meticulous planner, right? and and but I've realized that if I want to make my life easy, I've got to create the infrastructure, the processes that will make my business run automatically. And that means, number one, identifying, brainstorming on the process. And number two, identifying who are the people who can help you implement that.
Mm.
Because as an entrepreneur, we have this bootstrap mentality, which means if I can do it myself, I'll do it myself, right? Because anytime you hire somebody, that's an expense, right? But
Yeah.
the way I would refrain it would always be as early on in your business journey, try to already identify what are the things that you're really, really good at. And things that you are not good at, try to look for a solution of how you can outsource that to other people so that they can help you out with that. With Unapologetic, it's the same banana, right? I mean, I realize it's such a hassle to make content. It's such a hassle to build your website. It's such a hassle to create your funnels and whatnot. All these other things that come with running our business. So I decided, you know what? I saved up some money. I'll just hire somebody to do it. So I wound up hiring an entire team, and now I love it because I have a team that's working on building my brand. But I had to undergo that period of discomfort in order to really tell me that, Francis, you got to build your processes. And now that the processes are slowly coming into place, I'm not, by no means have we perfected it. There's still many gaps and holes in our processes. But now that these processes are there, the journey is becoming more and more exciting. Like what you said, the momentum is building. And just like any business, it's like a snowball. It starts off small and slow. And you just gotta push it down the cliff, right? And as you push it down the cliff, it starts to gain more traction. It starts to grow, grow, grow until it becomes unstoppable. It becomes an avalanche. And by then, your business becomes unstoppable. But you will always start off from that snowball. And the snowball stage, the small snowball stage, it is always uncomfortable. You will feel alone. You will feel, but when you put these processes into place, suddenly your life will become easier.
I love it.
So that's my advice for people. That's what's going
to
happen.
I think that's real gold that you shared, because I guess you gave humanity to business, because everyone can put entrepreneur on their IG page.
Yeah.
But they don't know how to like really hustle, like what I've seen you do. And I just want to tell the people that are watching and listening that Francis inspires me every day. I'm just so grateful to be his friend, to watch him, because when he wins, there's a feeling of I want to win too. Because sometimes I'd be lazy. When I see my friends, they're winning, I want to win too. Yeah. What do you think about that, Francis?
Well, like what I say, whatever floats your boat, right? If a spirit of competitiveness floats your boat, then go about it.
Yeah.
But I guess that's also one of the reasons why it's very important for us to select the friends that we hang out with. You know, I remember in the Philippines, we have this group, right, where we meet once in a while to support one another. And why is that very, very important? Because we've all heard this saying, right? And sometimes it's become cliche for us, but we've all heard this saying that you're the average of the 5 people that you hang out with. I really believe that. You want to become a successful businessman, you hang out with other business people. People are immersed in business. And it's good. It's good to have a right balance of who are the people that you hang out with. Hang out with people who are much, much more successful than you. Hang out with people who are just starting. Why? Because that's your way of averaging things out. Because you can't just be the leech who's learning from other people. You have to be a person who gives as well. Which means if there are people who are in a few steps behind you, your greatest gift would be to help accelerate them so that they move closer to you. And remember, we're always in a position to help people as long as we're just at least one step ahead of them. We're in a position to help people with that.
I love it.
So, and I like that. I will hang out with people who are 10 times more successful than me because I really want to learn how on earth did they do this, right? At the same time, I like hanging out with people who are starting out their business because I want to also be in a position to help inspire them move closer to their success. I'm not going to be able to guarantee their success, but if I help move them a step further, one step closer, then good job, diba? That's it. Because at the end of the day, it's not about did you receive the credit for this person's. No, it's not about that. It's really all about acknowledging that maybe you're not going to be the ultimate cause for their success, but maybe you contributed to it. And that matters. That matters because at the end of the day, it's not just the money that's important, which for businessmen money is very important, my friend. So I'd like to state that for the record. Money is very important, but it's not the end all be all.
Yeah.
And there.
Thank you, Francis. So beautiful. And I really pray that people will become more unapologetic in who they are. Because everything you said was just really beautiful, that we're trying to be somebody else. We're trying to fit a mold that people want us to fit. And every person you meet has a mold for us. And that's really what I'm taking in as we're having this conversation. And Francis, last question. I've seen you achieve dreams that so many dreams that most people probably will never achieve. And but you see, I was just reflecting that life has changed. For example, Pope Francis became Pope when he was 70, in his 70s. Your new president is very young at 70s, became president. So there's like new dreams are coming at your later stages in your life, and you're now in your early 40s. I believe you're gonna live
My God, I'm
80.
turning in my mid-40s this next year.
I'm a good friend, di ko na nga sinabi. So anyway, you're in your 40s, but I still believe, at least I believe honestly, you have a minimum of good more 40 years. And the good thing about entrepreneurship is that you have no retirement per se.
Mhm.
So Francis, you've achieved a lot of dreams. What are your new dreams for 80 years old?
Wow, that's a very interesting statement. Okay. I guess, if I were to talk about my dreams at 80, I want to be able to already build an infrastructure where I have the absolute freedom to spend the rest of my days just traveling the world and occasionally speaking whenever I travel. Because
Mm.
one of the things, and people who know me, this they know this fact about me. I love adventure. I love traveling. I love experiencing new things. I love eating new foods, right? And I'd like to reach the point where at 80 I'm still healthy enough to be able to do that. I'm healthy enough to be able to do that. I have the financial backbone to be able to do that. Yet at the same time, I'm able to still go up on stage once in a while and speak to people. And the idea being that you've built an empire of unapologetic speakers who are constantly inspiring people, who have been trained by you, and they're carrying out your brand of inspiration, helping as many people, because we can't help everyone in the world, but we can create ripples. And it's really the ripple effect that you make a big impact, a global impact, right? As an individual, I can only go so far. But if I relinquish, if I relinquish some of the knowledge that I have, some of the experiences that I have on other people, and I equip them to be able to perform, fulfill the same mission that I have. In the words of this pandemic, if I infect them with that mission, that purpose, right? And they start infecting other people with that same purpose, then isn't that how we're able to transform the world?
Mm.
Seriously, I don't know about you, but every day when I look at the state of the world, it's a struggle to be very optimistic. Honestly, I just putting it out there, being honest about it. It's a
Yeah.
struggle to be optimistic because you see everywhere in the world there's so much injustice, so much inequality, so much poverty, so much people, so much injustice in the world, and you think, is our world darker today than it was before? And there's a part of me that sadly thinks that. But then I realized this is where we come in, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes we feel like as an individual, we're stuck in our apartment. How the hell do we change society, right? And that's part of the dream. How do we change society so society becomes more compassionate, society becomes more humane, society becomes more caring of one another? I think we've reached the point where our society is facing a critical road. What the path that we'll choose will determine whether we enter into a futuristic utopia like Star Trek or a dystopia like Mad Max or Terminator, right? Where when we branch into that, we're either in a bright future or a dystopian dark future.
Yeah.
And that depends on how we pivot ourselves right now to be more caring for one another. Humanity has always thrived when we stop being individualistic and we start looking after one another. And especially when we create a society that takes care of the least, the lost, and the last. Walang iwanan, no one left behind, right?
I love it.
But how do we do that? How do we change that society? We do it in our own little circles of influence, in the ripples that we create in other people. We may think that, oh, I need to be president of the United States to be able to change the world. No, you don't. You don't need to be president of the U. You don't need to be president of any country. You just need to be faithful to your truth and make sure that that truth is a truth that will benefit the entire humanity. I want people to be more compassionate. I want people to care more for other people. And as a businessman, I want people to realize that at the end of the day, we're in the business of caring for people, not caring for money. Because if we care for people, the money comes naturally. But look at what's happening in the world. And I might get a little bit political here, but again, this is who I am. The reason why we're in such a sorry state right now is that the entrepreneurs and the businessmen have allowed greed to take over their hearts.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you think about that, right? The simple idea of being a multi-billionaire, why on earth would one person need to accumulate $20 billion? What can you do with 20 billion that you can't do with 19? You're hoarding that money. That's resources that can help improve the lives of people, right?
Yeah.
We have to learn that our profit, our money is designed to help uplift the world around us. We're not going to be able to uplift everyone, but maybe if we uplift the people that work with us, if we uplift the lives of the people that we deal with, if we empower people and give them the ability to have livelihoods and to have jobs and to support their families, maybe that's all we're called to do.
Yeah.
But part of our job is to inspire that culture, because people will follow their leaders. If their leaders show them that I am mercilessly I'm mercilessly concerned about money. I don't care if you starve as long as I get an extra dollar and you die from you getting the extra dollar. I'm not gonna give a shit. Then that's the culture they'll imbibe. They'll be that, and that will perpetuate this negative world, this dystopia that we're looking at. But we still can change that.
Yeah.
It comes from having a culture that is really based on compassionate entrepreneurship. The idea that it's not bad to be rich. You should be rich. But that wealth cannot just remain in you. That wealth has to flow out and improve the lives of the people around you as well.
I love what you said, compassionate entrepreneurship, and we need more of that, Francis. Thank you so much. Thank you. I want more. I'll have you again soon. You're so beautiful, everything. Francis, please tell everyone about Unapologetic Tribe, everything you're doing. How can they reach you?
Okay, so right now we ran a poll. We wanted to find out from people what they wanted to be called. So what's winning right now is the Unapologetics. But okay. For now, if you want to connect with us, want to join our community, we have this community called the Unapologetic Tribe. The name might change soon, but if you search for us on Facebook, I would really ask you guys to search for us on Facebook, the Unapologetic Tribe, and join that group, because that's a very powerful support group where people committed to helping one another achieve breakthroughs. And yesterday it was so funny because one of our members recently signed up a record deal with a big producer, and we shared his story on the group, and everyone was celebrating his victory. And the idea is that if you have a victory, if you achieve a breakthrough, this group, you should unapologetically share it. You should unapologetically talk about it here. And that community, I want you guys to be part of that community, because I want to be able to help you achieve your breakthrough as well. And the breakthroughs that we offer in Unapologetic is not an easy breakthrough, my friends. So you're going to be challenged, because part of the philosophy of Unapologetic is really, you got to disrupt to rebuild, which means the first part of the journey is normally destructive in nature, where you gotta figure out, what do you need to destroy? What do you need to get rid of? You have to clean it out so that you can start to rebuild. So that's a community for you. So I'd like to encourage everyone listening here, go to Facebook right now, search for the Unapologetic Tribe, and join. The other ways to connect with me is, please connect with me on LinkedIn. So I have I have a placer called Francis Miranda. I also have a website called the unapologeticdude.com. However, that's being edited right now, so the web team is redesigning that. So watch out for the launch of that. So the most important place I want you to connect is really the Facebook group. So please join us in the Unapologetic Tribe. Search for it and join it, because I promise you, you're going to find a loving community that might be occasionally tough on you. But the reason why we're tough on you is because we want to push you towards your success.
I love it. I love it. Thank you, Francis. And thank you,
You're
everyone,
welcome.
for joining here. And yeah, what I love about Francis is that he loves you, but he is not afraid to be tough on you. Not because he wants to bring you down, but because he wants to see you win. And when he sees his friends win and people he helps win, the twinkle in his eye is just priceless. So see you on our next episode. Please don't give up on everything that you're doing. Things will fall into place. The best is yet to come, and everything will just turn out well. I believe in you, and the purpose of success is to serve others. See you again next time.